Welcome back to Speak Smart, everyone. Today, we're diving into a topic that I know resonates with so many of you trying to master English. It's something that often feels like a huge roadblock: grammar. And Lucy, I think we both know the frustration, right?
Oh, absolutely, Jane. The sheer terror of remembering verb tenses, prepositions, articles, it's enough to make anyone just want to give up before they even start. I remember those endless exercises, filling in blanks, trying to memorize rules that just felt so abstract.
Exactly. And the premise of today's episode is a bold one. What if I told you that the real secret to learning English fluently doesn't actually involve explicitly learning grammar rules? What if you could speak naturally, confidently, and correctly, without ever dissecting a sentence diagram?
Okay, you've got my attention. Because for so long, we've been told that grammar is the absolute foundation. Like you must understand the why before you can even form a sentence. It sounds almost counterintuitive to say you can just bypass it.
It does, doesn't it? But think about how children learn their first language. Do they sit down with a grammar textbook? Do their parents explain subjunctive moods? No, they immerse themselves. They listen, they mimic, they make mistakes, and they correct themselves naturally over time.
That's such a brilliant point. You pick up patterns without even realizing you're doing it. It's like osmosis. You hear, "I want an apple" 100 times, and you just know that's how you say it, not "I want apple and" or "an apple I want."
Precisely. Your brain is a super pattern recognition machine. When you expose it to enough correct English, it starts to internalize those structures. You develop an intuitive feel for what sounds right and what doesn't. It's called implicit learning.
So instead of memorizing a rule like articles come before nouns, you're just absorbing phrases where the and, a, an are correctly used, and your brain pieces together the pattern on its own.
Exactly. The number one secret, if you will, is massive exposure to comprehensible input. This means listening and reading material that you understand roughly 80 to 90% of. It shouldn't be too easy, not too hard.
Heck it. So we're talking podcasts, right? Like, Speak Smart perhaps? Chuckles?
Laughs, exactly. Podcasts, audiobooks, YouTube videos with subtitles, movies, TV shows, even songs. But the key is consistent, daily engagement. Not just a sporadic hour here and there.
And when you say comprehensible, it's important not to just pick the hardest, fastest native content right away. You need to build up to that, otherwise it's just noise, and your brain can't latch onto patterns.
That's super important, Lucy. Start with something slightly above your current level so you're challenged but not overwhelmed. The goal is to understand the general meaning, even if you miss a word or two. Your brain fills in the gaps over time.
Okay, so input is key. What's the next big secret for actually speaking fluently without getting bogged down in grammar?
That brings us to the second pillar, output. You have to speak. You have to use the language even if you feel like you're making a million mistakes. Speaking is how you solidify those implicit patterns and build confidence.
And that's where a lot of people get stuck, isn't it? The fear of making mistakes, the fear of sounding wrong. I know I used to freeze up trying to construct the perfect grammatically correct sentence in my head before saying anything.
Absolutely. That's a huge barrier. But mistakes are not failures, they're feedback. They're part of the learning process. Think about it. A child learning to walk falls down countless times before they're running. We don't tell them, "Go read a physics book on balance first."
That's a fantastic analogy. So the advice is to just start talking, even if it's imperfect. But where do you find people to talk to if you're not in an English-speaking country?
Great question. The internet is your best friend here. There are tons of language exchange apps and websites where you can find native speakers willing to chat. Even joining online communities or forums where people speak English can help you practice writing, which eventually feeds into speaking.
And even talking to yourself, right? I know it sounds a bit silly, but just narrating your day, describing things around you in English can make a big difference in building muscle memory for your mouth and brain.
Oh, that's such an underrated tip, Lucy. Absolutely. Shadowing, too, listening to a native speaker and trying to mimic their pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation exactly. It's like vocal exercise for your English.
I can see how that would help you naturally absorb those grammatical structures without consciously thinking, okay, past perfect continuous.
Precisely. You start internalizing patterns like "I have been working" just because you've heard it and used it so many times. Not because you've memorized its definition. It just feels right.
What about vocabulary, though? You can listen and speak all you want, but if you don't know the words, you'll still struggle, right?
Absolutely. Vocabulary is crucial. But again, the approach is different. Instead of rote memorization of word lists, focus on learning words in context. When you hear a new word in a podcast or read it in a book, try to guess its meaning from the surrounding sentences.
So you're not pausing every 2 minutes to look up every single unknown word, because that can really break the flow and make learning feel like a chore.
Exactly. If you're pausing constantly, the material is probably too difficult. Aim for material where you can infer most meanings. And when you do look something up, don't just learn the word in isolation. Learn common collocations, phrases it's used with. For instance, don't just learn learn achieve a goal, achieve success, achieve fluency.
That's brilliant, because then you're naturally picking up those grammar in action bits. Like, achieve is often followed by a noun, and it helps you understand its usage without thinking, this is a transitive verb requiring a direct object.
Exactly. You're learning chunks of language, not just individual bricks. Native speakers don't build sentences word by word applying grammar rules. They recall ready-made chunks and adapt them. That's why fluency often feels like it's about speed and naturalness, not perfect accuracy on the first try.
I love that idea of chunks. It makes learning feel much less intimidating. So, to recap, massive comprehensible input, consistent output speaking practice, and learning vocabulary in context through collocations and phrases.
You got it. And honestly, the biggest secret beyond those practical tips is mindset. You have to enjoy the process. Learning English shouldn't feel like school. It should feel like exploring a new world, a new culture.
That's so true. If you're constantly dreading grammar lessons, you're going to burn out. But if you're listening to a fascinating podcast or watching a gripping series, you're intrinsically motivated to understand.
Exactly. Find topics you're passionate about. If you love cooking, watch English cooking shows. If you're into gaming, follow English-speaking streamers. Make English a part of your daily life, not just a subject you study.
And the beauty of this approach is that when you do eventually encounter formal grammar, perhaps later on, it suddenly makes sense. The rules become descriptions of patterns you've already internalized rather than abstract concepts you're trying to force into your brain.
Yes, grammar then becomes a tool for refinement, for understanding the nuances, not the initial building block. It's like learning to drive a car by actually driving it and then looking at the mechanic's manual to understand how the engine works, instead of vice versa.
That's a fantastic analogy. So, for anyone out there feeling stuck or overwhelmed by English grammar, what's one immediate thing they can do after listening to this episode?
My absolute top recommendation is to find an English language podcast on a topic you genuinely love. Put on your headphones, go for a walk, and just listen. Don't worry about understanding every single word, just let the sounds and the rhythm wash over you. Consistency is magic here.
And try to repeat some phrases out loud as you hear them. Don't censor yourself. Just let the words flow. It's about building that comfort with the sounds and structures.
Absolutely. It's about letting go of the need for perfection and embracing the journey of discovery. Your brain is wired for language learning, you just need to give it the right environment. Stop stressing about to be or not to be and just be in the language.
It's such a liberating thought, Jane. For me, focusing on communication over grammatical accuracy was the turning point. Once I stopped trying to be perfect, I actually started speaking much more.
It truly is liberating. And the amazing thing is, the more you communicate, the more input you get and the more fluent you naturally become. It's a virtuous cycle. So ditch the grammar books for a bit and just dive in.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you, Jane, for demystifying this whole grammar conundrum. I think a lot of our listeners are going to feel a huge weight lifted off their shoulders after this.
My pleasure, Lucy. And thank you all for tuning in to Speak Smart. We hope this episode inspires you to approach your English learning journey with renewed excitement and less fear. Until next time, keep speaking smart.